Welcome to Dating History. My name is Katie Massey.
My name is Annalisa Burns.
And here every week, we take a historical male figure and break down his personality, his star sign, his relationships, because while he might have been an artistic genius, he also could have been an abusive boyfriend.
That's right. So in school, you might have been taught about these men and told to forget about their relationships and love lives and focus on their genius. But at Dating History, we forget about the genius and we focus on their love lives and relationships. So this week's subject is none other than Pablo Picasso. Pablo Picasso, an artistic revolutionary, the definition of complicated, and the guy that would call you his muse right after ruining your whole life.
For this week's episode, I watched the BBC documentary Picasso, The Beauty and the Beast. I think that title's lame, by the way. And I also read François Gillot's gorgeous book, Life with Picasso.
Look at that.
Yeah, look at it, which I highly recommend, but you'll hear more about my thoughts on that soon. And I also talked to Alex Schwartz at The New Yorker, who wrote about Life with Picasso when it was re-released. So there's a lot to talk about this week. What's notable about this book is that normally we go based off of biographies and sort of like an entire account. And this is a book written by one of his lovers, one of his important women, about the decade that she spent with Picasso. So
We're getting insider info.
Right, exactly. It's a personal account this time.
And to prepare for the podcast, I made a Venn diagram with the overlap of Pablo Picasso and Hilaria Baldwin. Because Hilaria Baldwin, #1 Spaniard scammer. Pablo Picasso, my second least favorite Spaniard. And you're about to find out why. They're both the biggest scammers of all time.
The similarities are striking.
No, they are. And it's like, I don't even know. I will share it. But at the same time, I think you can see for yourself. The overlap is uncanny.
Totally. And you know, she's on this season of Dancing with the Stars, so
he would have been too.
He actually weirdly was really against dancing.
This is one of the worst men we've talked about by far.
Every week it's like, couldn't get worse. Could they get worse? And the answer every week is yes.
Yes.
They could get worse.
This man was as nasty as it gets. And we'll dive into it right now.
So you're bringing up the fact that he is Spanish from Spain, born on October 25th, 1881, which makes him a
Pisces?
Pisces.
What is he? I don't know this stuff.
Scorpio, which
means
I know I say every week that tracks, but that really tracks. Scorpios are artistic and intense and brooding, and he's obviously all of those things.
I don't know any Scorpio
and
people. And
also apparently quite sensual.
Okay.
So there you go.
Yeah. They're all sex addicts and freaks.
Well, my mom's a Scorpio.
Never mind. The men Scorpios are problematic.
Totally.
The women are perfect.
So he lived to be 91. And
that's too old.
The thing is that's similar to Ben Franklin is these men end up spending the last 2 decades of their lives being like, any day now I could go. And then they live a long time. So one of the things about Picasso is like, he's a great artist, he's revolutionary, but also he was so prolific. He made over 100,000 pieces of artwork, which is mind-boggling to me. And he grew up with a father who was a painter, and he surpassed him in skill pretty early on. They basically said in the documentary, they're like, and then he kind of had a God complex. And I'm like,
he probably had a God complex. And apparently his dad kind of freaked out and questioned his own abilities because he saw his son surpass him artistically at such a young age. So he gave up painting for a little while and then he came back to it. So it really emotionally affected everybody in his life how successful he was.
He also was the eldest, and then he had 2 younger sisters. And when he was quite young, one of his sisters passed away at the age of 7 from diphtheria,
That's
which
tragic.
created a lifelong fear of death.
That'll do it.
That will do it.
So he was the first painter who really became a celebrity, like a star, right?
Yeah, he was a famous painter. He wasn't just a guy it was the opposite of like he painted all this stuff and then he became famous later on. No. Picasso became very successful
In his lifetime.
and partially from being one of the founders of Cubism. So
do you think it's because he was a founder of a new movement? Why do you think that is?
Well, what I think is so interesting about being important in art is that you kind of have to decide you want to be important in art. Like you could be a really skilled painter, you could be a really skilled sculptor, but there's also an element of like, okay, now I have to try something new. It's not just about being good at it. So it's not, and I guess that could be mapped onto anything, but it's not just about mastering the skill as it exists. It's about trying something new and going above and beyond. And he decided that he wanted to be an important artistic figure. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah, because you can be a successful painter. No one will know what you look like. But this guy was all over the tabloids.
He was. And he is also, and was famous even then, for not only churning out a lot of artwork, but also sleeping with a lot of women.
And breaking hearts.
And something that's interesting about Picasso and his relationship to women is that every major muse roughly corresponded to a different artistic movement in his, every major woman or muse corresponded to a different artistic era in his career. Which brings me to one of my major theses of this episode, which is Pablo Picasso is Taylor Swift. Pablo Picasso had similarities in his career to the one and only Taylor Swift. And I just find it interesting that when historians talk about how his artistic eras correspond to different women, it's treated with dignity and respect. And it seemed to be so interesting. And it implies that he's such a passionate artist that every woman affected his art. And then when Taylor Swift writes a different album about a different man, every album being about a different man, she gets slut shamed up the wazoo.
I'm not a Swiftie, but I am a big fan of Travis Kelce.
Literally name one thing about Travis Kelce aside from that he plays football.
He's a big guy who seems nice like Lenny from Of Mice and Men. But anyway, the Taylor Swift analogy does make sense to me. It really does. She kind of used her experience and like the heartbreak and what she learned from those relationships to create these pieces of art. Whereas he was like, let's use that woman's body, let's use her face, and let's make a fucked up piece of art. That's what his art looks like. Everything is upside down and colored in weird colors. What Picasso's art feels like to me is when, like, say a guy makes a short film and it's like whale sounds over a truck wheel going for 15 minutes. And then everyone's like, oh my God, that's amazing. How did he do that? He put two things that don't make sense together. What? And nowadays you go to a lot of modern museums and there'll be like 3 dots and it's like, oh my God. Like, I just want to see like a picture of a sailboat.
I also think it's like we've decided that things need to be new in order to be important or good. And it's like, well, yeah, he advanced art. And I'm like,
by making it worse?
Well, also my question is that a good thing? Is that important? Does that matter? And in some ways, I think sure. And in others, it's like, just because he did something different, does that mean that is such a contribution to greater society that we can discount him having been a jerk? Another important thing to think about when it comes to Picasso, particularly with Cubism, is Picasso went to a museum and looked at a lot of African art and masks and sculptures, and then started to incorporate quite obviously a lot of those shapes and symbols and
Didn't give credit.
took a lot of artistic inspiration from it and then denied it and didn't give credit.
All I know is, where was his abuelita? His whole family was telling him that this art was amazing. But if I showed my abuelita, abuelitas are brutally honest, famously. If I showed my abuelita something that looked all fucked up and weird and modern and different, she'd be like, ay, qué asco, qué es eso? Ya no, esta chingadero cosa, no quiero esta. And she wouldn't want it in her house.
I also think that he got used to having people to have to come to him to understand his artwork and then also understand him.
Right.
And so I think that in some ways he got used to pulling people to him so that they could understand him. A notable thing about Picasso is he had this very obvious fascination with the female body, which is not inherently grounds for criticism. Like, go off.
That depends.
It's a beautiful thing, but he held great disdain for the female mind. And that's what makes me crazy about and reluctant to enjoy or lean in or enjoy without criticizing a lot of the artwork of the female body. Is it because in interpersonal dynamics and also even within his artwork, his reflections of how he actually felt about women was so disdainful that that's what makes me less interested in all of the different ways in which you can create a female nude that he did.
I don't think I would want to be a muse.
Tell me more.
I don't think I could stand being a muse because I'd get bored. I'd be like, can we put on a movie in the background? I am standing still and this doesn't even look like me. I wouldn't want to be a muse. I think I could never be somebody's muse because I am too loud and I'm not boring enough.
I think something interesting about how he understood women was no woman can be perfect because no woman can be everything. He wanted a woman who was both independent and feisty and intelligent, who would disagree with him, and a woman who was completely subservient, who would do whatever he wanted, who would only say yes to him. And he wanted women to be all of those things. And no woman is every single thing, is every single trait. And so therefore, all of them were inherently imperfect. And he made up for these imperfections or flaws or deficits by sleeping with lots of women. He shows up in Paris.
Okay.
He's living and painting in... The only word that comes to mind is like a hovel. That's not even the right word. In squalor. He's living in squalor.
He's living in squalor. It's just a funny thing to say, and I wanted a chance to say it too. That's something that I need to say because it's so good.
He was living in squalor in a tiny... Wait, okay.
He was living in squalor.
Okay.
Where was he living?
In squalor.
Right.
Okay. He was living in a building where everyone lives sharing a bathroom, not a nice abode, but living around a lot of other artists. And a woman in the building catches his eye, who is an artistic model. She's making a living by posing for classes. And at this point, like, she's well known. He's not. Like, nobody cares about this guy. And he shows up, and what does he do? He love bombs her.
What else would he do?
I will say, make no mistake, I hate this man and I don't think I would have fallen for any of his tricks. Except she would see him around. He was like neighbor guy or whatever in their building. So she was aware of him. He, one day, in order to start a conversation with her, was holding a teeny tiny kitten. And he said, would you like to hold it? And that would have worked on me. Wait, this worked on me recently at a bar. I was at a bar in LA and a guy was walking around with a kitten and done. This is how somebody could like shove me into like an unmarked van, as if they were like, do you want to hold my kitten? And I would be like, yeah. And he love bombs her. I love you. She'd like open her eyes and he'd be standing over the bed staring at her. So I just would like to say the red flags were there. There were clear red flags that would say, stay away from this man. But
is that a red flag?
He begs, what?
Like what? Like, I guess like standing
over. If a man's standing over the bed and you open your eyes and he's like... Anyway, he finally convinces her to move in with him. Begs. She's like, fine, I'll move in with you all the way across the hall. They're in one building in
A brothel.
Squalor. And she's like,
Same
fine,
word.
I'll move in with you. And then he's like, oh my God, great. We live together. By the way, I want you to stop modeling because I don't want any men to be able to see you. And she'd be like, what? Stop modeling? He's yeah. I want you to stop modeling. And she was like, oh my God, I'd be giving up all my independence for love. And he's like, yeah, that's what I want.
Her career.
Yeah, that's her career. And mind you, they're living in squalor. So he has no money to support her. Like he's not popular. People know who she is more than him. And she's like, okay. And then she decides to give up her modeling career for him to move in with him. And he's like, great. Not only do I not want you to model, but when I go out today, I'm going to go hang out with my friends. I want you to stay here. And he goes out. This is something that happens regularly. Yeah. And he locks the door from the outside and locks her in their studio.
That's some yellow wallpaper shit.
What does that mean?
It is a short story where a guy keeps his wife trapped in a room that has yellow wallpaper, and she starts to go insane and thinks she's depressed and something's wrong with her when he was just keeping her away.
Important information. They're the same age. This is relevant because no woman that we talk about for the rest of the episode will be the same age as him. So they're the same age. She decides that she wants to get pregnant. She can't get pregnant. They're like, let's go adopt. So they go to an orphanage in Montmartre. And there they decide to adopt a 13-year-old girl. They bring her back to squalor. Fernand then returns the girl quite quickly because Picasso, she realizes, has been drawing nude portraits of her with her legs spread.
The adopted daughter,
13-year-old girl.
Woody Allen. It's a Woody Allen situation we have on our hands.
Right. Can I just say, people love to say, we can't judge him by today's standards. Yes, the fuck we can't. Like, what do you mean? Watch as I judge him by today's standards. First of all, he's not here. So unless the ghost of Picasso is going to come and start haunting me, it doesn't matter. Like, he's not listening. And if he is, good. He should hear it. And the idea that we can't judge them by today's standards, it's like they didn't get judged enough at the time. So it's actually my prerogative to judge them by today's standards.
That is what the podcast is for. Judging these men for their insane behavior. If you want to try and say that it was just a part of the culture and it was just a part of that era that he drew he drew his daughter naked. Mm-hmm. I think that stands the test of time.
Picasso is somebody that people are starting to go back through his history post Me Too. That he is someone who is starting to be reevaluated. And a lot of Picasso fans are defensive over him being only understood in this way. And what I have to say, when people say, like, you're not painting a full picture, or it's not fair to him, or, you know, he was a product of his time, or blah, 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 I'm like, why would I hold shame for men who have none? He was not apologetic for his actions. It was clearly bad behavior for the time. And there's this idea that we should preemptively not go too hard on men who have displayed bad behavior in order to seem balanced when we're going about it or when we're going after them. And it's like, these guys have no shame. Like, Picasso didn't have any shame. Donald Trump doesn't have any shame. All of these major important figures aren't expressing that they feel bad. And so it's not like Picasso was somebody who was saying, like, oh, you know, I am a sex addict and I have all these problems and I feel bad. He was completely unapologetic for being who he was, which was abusive and creepy and all of these things. But he didn't seem to feel bad for it at all. And in fact, he was completely in denial of it. So that's why I don't feel like I need to hold on to sort of going easy on him, because he didn't accept, understand, or acknowledge any of those things for himself.
Yeah, it's kind of that thing of saying sorry only if you're caught.
We got a lot of women to get through. So moving on, after that, he married a ballerina. She was in the Russian ballet, and he decided that he wanted to be with her because she was socially relevant and powerful. And he was like,
she's a ballerina.
Olga's 10 years younger than him. She decides she wants to marry him. She meets his mother, and his mother says, if I were a friend of yours, I would tell you don't do it. This is his mother, who adores him. He grew up with artistic parents who supported his artistic careers. She adores him. She's like, girly pop, let me tell you, don't do it. Run.
But she's sane in protecting a fellow woman.
Yeah, she
That's
said
huge.
She said, I don't believe any woman could be happy with my son. He's available for himself and nobody else. Which
God
tells
bless
you that
that woman.
if even his mother is criticizing him, he's not just a product of the time.
Like, this is a problem.
Like, this is a problem.
Yeah.
This is a personality problem.
She's not making excuses for her son.
Yeah. Anyway, she gets pregnant. They have Pablo, and then
There goes her career.
right. She also would hemorrhage. She would gynecologically hemorrhage and was often bedridden during their marriage or during the parts where he was there. And he was impatient with her for that. He went,
Of course.
He went, hey, stop bleeding. Stop
He
Stop
didn't
it.
have the capacity for her pain.
Yeah. I mean, he was, yeah.
He couldn't have the capacity for her beyond being a pretty ballerina.
Right. And something that's cool is that the man is consistent, because then decades later, when Francois Gillot also was hemorrhaging, he was like, hey, stop again, because he found it to be an inconvenience. So he was impatient with them. So if you're wondering why I hate him, that's part of it.
Oh my God. And then he had a girlfriend, correct me if I'm wrong, that was he got into BDSM with her.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do think it's possible that more than one, but there was one girl who he introduced to sadomasochistic sex. How old was she when you ask? 17.
17.
She was 17.
The ripe age of 17.
She was 17 and she was a schoolgirl walking along the street, and he said, hey, you have a cool face.
Sounds like Manhattan.
Let's
Great movie by Woody Allen.
You know what I fucking can't stand about Woody Allen is that in all of his movies, he's like, he has these young female actresses be like, gee, I just wish that a famous, important Hollywood director would fuck me. Like, and you're like, if you're gonna be Woody Allen, be less Woody Allen-y. Like, if you have somehow managed to scrape through without being extraordinarily canceled for being Woody Allen, at least fly under the radar a little bit. But in fucking Rainy Day of New York, Elle Fanning has to go around being like, oh my goodness, there's just something about a Hollywood director man who's so much older than me, where I just can't help it, but I just want to have sex with him so badly. And you're like, Woody, it's unbelievable you are allowed to make this movie. At least be normal.
Also, cut and then like pan to Woody Allen, the guy who's like this director that they're obsessed with, and it's a 5'2" neurotic balding man who's like, I think I have rabies,
Right.
all day long.
And you're like, hey, I don't know if that's what the young girls on set are thinking, my guy. But anyway.
So he was with met this 17-year-old schoolgirl. And how old is he at the time?
That's such a good question. I think he's like 41, 42. He was 45. She was 17. I need to stop singing. He was 45. She was 17.
Yeah, no.
They start to, she becomes his mistress. He loves the idea of her because she is not his wife. So, and thus she is perfect because she's not his wife. They start to have sex. She is introduced to the entire world of sex, thus, since she is a child. And eventually she gets pregnant, and his first daughter, who's named Maya, is born. But
Damn. So then that's crazy. And then he quickly moved on to...
After Marie-Therese, saying after is honestly kind of misleading because none of them are after. There's overlap. So he never would begin something with one woman while totally single. There was always overlap with the woman before, and all
Serial
of the women
cheater.
kind of like stuck around. After this, he meets a surrealist photographer named Dora Maar, and Dora is very much different from Marie-Therese, partially because she is not 17 when they meet, but also she has her own career going as a photographer. And so thus is set up the duality that's seen throughout so much of his artwork, where it's like pretty blonde girl who likes me and does everything I want her to and is so nice to me, and smart girl with dark hair who is has critical thinking and sometimes gives me hard time. And you see those two figures throughout so much of his artwork.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I feel like the smart artist woman who has dark hair, God, is seen as like it's kind of like a villain, like a witch creature in his art,
Right.
Which is very interesting. And then like these young, fragile angel blonde women that he's portraying are like angelic type innocent beings. It's kind of it's weird. That's something that's been a presence in art for centuries before that, though, to be honest. And he just kind of like exemplified it.
There's always a bad man before and after the bad man we're talking about.
Yeah.
The bad man is never isolated in his badness, but he's still bad.
Exactly.
And Dora Maar ended up having a nervous breakdown as a result of her time with Picasso. She would keep herself. She was in an apartment near his studio. She lived in an apartment near his studio, and she would keep her schedule clear just in case he wanted to see her. As Taylor Swift once said, she'd cancel her plans just in case he'd call. And she did this because she knew correctly that if he came by wanting to see her and she was not there, he would fly into a fit of rage. And so she just would keep her schedule clear until she was sure that he had other plans. Understandably, she was then eventually driven to insanity. She felt crazy because of her exchange with him. And one of Picasso's best friends went over there with him one time. And she told Picasso, like, you might be a great painter. Morally, you're disgusting. Go off, queen. Well said. But one of his best friends looked at him and was like, what have you done? Like, you have made her crazy. His friend said to him, like, you have ruined her. And he was like, if someone doesn't go to pieces all of a sudden without an underlying cause, no accountability. No, yeah, you're right, I messed up. Just straight to like, well, there was something wrong with her. So anyway.
Even if there was an underlying cause, why make it worse?
Yeah, such
why
a good
break
point.
her? If you see a woman who's struggling or emotionally damaged, like, why would you see it upon yourself to be like, I'm gonna make this worse.
Totally.
I'm gonna really destroy this woman right now.
If a man has messed up so badly that another man tells him, that's how you know it's bad.
No, it's pretty off the rails, and it's pretty obvious that he's fucking up in this instance. But a pattern that I think we're seeing with Picasso's girlfriends is that he keeps cheating and he keeps gaslighting and emotionally manipulating these women into feeling small and insignificant without him. And he was very good at doing that and belittling these women and making them feel powerless and weak. And that's kind of what led them to insanity, which is really, really sad and horrific.
It is. It's also really fucking common. Like, I feel like women are so hard on themselves in 2025 about feeling driven completely insane by a man. But it's like from the dawn of time, women have been losing their minds over men. And the reaction is to go, look at how crazy she is. And not to go, what the fuck did he do to her? It's like, why can't she handle the abuse better? Not why is he abusing her? One day, Dora and him are sitting at lunch and he sees two young art students and he goes up to them because he thinks they're pretty and starts talking to them, and they tell him that they are painters. And he says, girls can't be painters with a face like that. Fuck that guy. And one of them is a young painter named François Gillot, who is the author of this book and who goes on to be one of his most important muses and women in his life. When they meet, she is 21.
And he is 60?
61. So he said, Dora Maar, 26-year age gap. No. Time to go up. Time to upgrade to that 40-year age gap.
So she was 9 months younger than his son. Classy.
Pablo.
That is the formula. That is the creep formula.
Mm-hmm. She starts visiting his studio. At one point, he tells her, he's like, God, I wish I could just lock you in the attic and keep you up there just for myself, which is creepy and weird if anybody said it, but is especially creepy and weird because you know that he basically did that with Fernand. So really not cool. And she keeps coming to his studio, keeps visiting him, and then eventually he starts to make a move on her. He starts touching her, and she doesn't put up a fight, doesn't tell him not to, and he is disgusted and horrified by this and says, if you don't resist, how can I seduce you? Something that Pablo Picasso was famous for saying, which can be our real thing he said, because not only did he say it once, but he said it often, was there are only two kinds of women, goddesses and doormats. And Françoise Gillot, when she talked about it, she said, and whenever he thought I might be feeling too much like a goddess, he did his best to turn me into a doormat. Something that I think is interesting that we've seen come up throughout the podcast is this idea of women going into something fully being like, this might be a bad idea.
And correct me if I'm wrong, her friend told her when she first met him, like, you're headed for a catastrophe. This is a bad idea. And she said, well, yes, she's probably right. She said, quote, but I felt it was the kind of catastrophe I didn't want to avoid.
Yeah, and it's so similar, like we'd said about Jackie Kennedy. It's these women seeing that a situation could end up really badly,
messing her up,
and being like, I still need to try it. This is the thing, is like when you have a friend who comes to you and like wants to talk to you all day long about why a guy is so horrible, and you're like, I actually know the perfect thing that you could say to him that would finish all of this, or that he would, and you realize that you just have to let your friend do the messy thing because they feel like they're just too curious that they want to. I think a lot of human decisions, particularly when you're young, but for the rest of your life, are not so much about an interest in being good or being bad or doing good or doing bad, or it's just out of pure curiosity to be like, well, what happens when I do this? You know,
let's find out. Yeah, curiosity. And I completely understand where she's coming from and where she's been. She's like, let's see what color he paints my hair.
And the answer to that question is green.
Right?
Yeah.
She's the one he painted green.
Well, Matisse made a comment about painting Francois's hair green. And then Picasso was like, well, she's not the only one who can paint it green. I can actually also paint it green. So then he painted her hair green. We talked about in the Henry David Thoreau episode, we talked about men arbitrarily deciding to physically challenge themselves to like do something that pushes them to their physical limits. So like Bear Grylls style, or like building a house in the woods, or
rock climbers,
right? Doing things that are hard for no reason, just to challenge yourself.
Spending thousands of dollars at REI to go be cold.
Right. We also talked about it in the JFK episode where we're like, why would you opt into a difficult physical experience?
Because adversity is glorified in art.
Well, I think that women opt into extraordinarily difficult emotional experiences.
Okay. Now we're getting somewhere.
So just as men decide to push themselves to their physical limits and see how far that they can go with a physical adventure or exercise, I think women sometimes opt into difficult emotional situations purposefully as a way of testing themselves, of challenging themselves, of seeing how far they can go. And also because being in a difficult mental situation can be interesting. It can be horrible,
right,
but it can be interesting. And I think that there is a decision, like, I'm going to be unhappy, but I'm not going to be bored.
100%.
Yeah.
And that is how, well, unhappy is, but not bored is better than being unhappy and bored. Mm-hmm. And I think having something to talk about and something to have, like, to walk around and listen to sad music about, to feel heartbroken and tortured by, is sometimes something that feels very powerful. And feeling something powerful, you're 100% right, I agree with you, is profound. They're just putting themselves through an endurance test. And I think women still do it. Women always do it. Oh, I've done it.
100%.
I do it today. And it's like, oh, let's see if I can handle this one. Nope. Let's see if I can handle this guy who's had a horrible track record and doesn't even have a car that works.
And it's like, not only let's see if I can handle him, but let's see if I can play this right, or do this right, or be right, or nobody else has quite been able to master this situation. What if I can be the one to do it? And she basically says as such, she says, this was a challenge I couldn't turn down. And she wants to to try it. She makes a comment about him being like Bluebeard in his castle, where
exactly,
and the comment
disgusting.
and the parallel there being like Bluebeard gets rid of all of his past wives, but she says that Picasso has all of his ex-wives like hanging in a closet with their heads cut off, but not completely cut off, metaphorically, because he wants to be able to like open the door and look at them whenever he wants. You know, he wants to still be able to have access to them. So the reason that Françoise is so relevant, not only because she wrote this book, which we'll talk about the fact that she wrote it, but the reason that she's considered to be so important in a lot of ways is that she is the only woman who ever left him. So everybody else was left or hung on, and she, to your question of like, how did they have so much patience? Eventually she didn't. She was like, this is not working. You are not being loving. And the thing about being his muse and his wife is that you're also like his administrator and his secretary. Like she then also has to like make the fires every morning, buy the bullfighting chair. It's like such a laborious role. They end up having 2 kids together because when she's complaining about something, he's like, you know how you would learn how to be a woman to have a baby.
Yeah.
Then she has 2 babies and he's like, why are you so domestic? Ugh. After it was his idea.
It's just so hard to please him.
She is a woman who he respects so much and is so interested in, but he is so unbelievably hard on her because she is a person with human limits and he cannot forgive that in a partner.
And this is the first time someone's like, wait, you're not the only one who has emotions and opinions. And he was like, wrong.
Right. That's basically exactly what happened. He was like, you need to be completely dutiful to me. And she was like, what about you to me? And he was like,
God.
What? Relax. So she wrote this book. And she wanted to be sure to publish it while he was still alive, which I find really interesting. And it is about basically their entire experience together. And she dedicated the book to him, which I find really touching. He tried via 3 different lawsuits to stop the book from being published. He got a lot of his artist friends to also try to stop the book from being published. They were basically saying that it was like, you know, a hack and her just like trying to talk about him, trying to get famous based off of him. It is such a well-written book. It is so good, regardless of it being about him. Like her sense of humor is so obvious in it. Her reflections are so obvious. She's just a very funny narrator. But obviously it was considered to be scandalous that she released it. And the great irony here is that by writing this book and writing it about him, she basically turns him into her muse.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
So a lot of people were upset about it. It's like they're so mad, but she's in so much of his artwork and then she puts him in hers. And it's considered to be, you know, gauche.
It is absolutely so hypocritical.
She also doesn't drag him through the mud. Like she writes a very
in a respectful way,
respectful, balanced. The account that I would have written about Pablo Picasso would have been like, and another thing that he did.
He was I think the definition and epitome of toxic. And not only did he do that, but he cheated on everyone. Do you think that one of the later ones, what is this, like the 5th girl he's with? One of his 5th lover, or like a woman that's a chapter in his life.
Yeah, 5th.
Do you think that the 5th one was finally the one who could leave because times were changing and the times were getting more modern and people were talking about relationships in a more complicated context instead of just being like, yes, she's woman, he's man, and she should be making dinner?
I love this question because there's so much flack, completely understandably, given on him for him being with women who are so much younger than him. But on the other hand, it's possible that she was more empowered because she was younger. You know, we think of age gap relationships as just being manipulative, but it's possible that she felt more capable and more able to go toe to toe with him because she was younger. However, I don't actually think that that's what it was here, because there were untraditional relationships happening already, and Fernand was already, her own person existing as an individual, and she was way back at the beginning for him. I think an important piece of this is that Francois was making her own money from being an artist.
Good.
Which, the art dealer who was buying and selling her work then stopped working with her when the book came out. But she was becoming her own artist. And so I think that was part of it. But I also think it was like his expectations were freaking crazy. And that there's a point at which it's like she realized that she only had one life, and she realized that she would be happier. She realized a realization I think a lot of people have at the end of a relationship is that they wouldn't be more lonely alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That maybe they were more lonely in an extremely toxic,
it's like in Succession, that scene where he's like, I just don't know if the sad I feel without you would be worse than the sad I feel with you. The final woman, he ended up being married to her for like 20 years because he lived to be 91, and she ended up being the most featured woman because they were together for so long. And he decided 40-year age gap with Francois wasn't enough, so he went for a 45-year age gap, and she kind of like swooped in at the end of the relationship with Francois. And I mean, it is a very, it is coming from the woman he was then with, being Francois, but she kind of was like, who's this lady? And it seemed like she swooped in and was very happy to like take care of him, and he was like her entire life. Francois quotes her as being like, as her getting upset with him, and then him saying something and her being like, you're right about everything, which is a sentence I don't think I would ever say. But
and he was old at this point.
Yeah, he's like, 45-year age gap. He's like 70, and then they're married for 20 years, and he dies at 91. So like, yeah.
That's 2 generations, but he didn't care. He just wanted a beautiful ballerina muse because he was a freak.
The thing about Picasso, and this is why I love this podcast so much, and why I love doing this podcast so much, is like an extraordinary artistic genius whose thoughts were so boring and pedestrian and lame when it came to women. So it's like you have this man who is so extraordinary in one realm, and then if you can hear what he's thinking about women, it's so boring. And I find that to be disappointing. And I think that sometimes some of the people who are trying to summarize him were like, well, he's not a monster and he's not a god, he's just a man. And I'm like, yeah, but he's not a good man. Like, he's not kind to the women that he's with. And also there are relationships that are described in the book where like the guys are much nicer than this.
No, his opinions of women were boring. They were very similar to that of a perverted 16-year-old dumb boy.
I think part of the attraction to him was that he was so dedicated to his artwork that it was like, watching somebody be that serious about something, you can extrapolate to think that like they have that seriousness within them. They could maybe be serious about you or just in general. Like, and I think part of when Francois got the ick is that he started to be kind of careless because he started to have a greater fear of dying and of getting older. So he started to be more careless in general. And he wasn't just this man who was devoted to his art and nothing else. He also was like partying.
100%.
And I also, in terms of talking about why women date terrible people or why anybody dates a terrible person, I think some of the appeal with him is that he would have flashes of gentle, good, funny, kind moments. And when something like that happens to anybody, you can then spend the rest of the time being like, wait, come back, where did that go? Where did I know that's in there? Like, and then it turns into this thing of being like, you don't want to be crazy. You want to know that person's still there. So then you wait to see that person again. And then it turns into this thing of like getting kind of addicted to the like breadcrumbing of good behavior or breadcrumbing of emotional availability or of joy or of funniness or of empathy. And so he would have moments of being funny and wonderful, and that becomes like kind of addictive to try to wait and see when the next one will come.
100. Yeah.
Anyway, how do you think that we've both written how we might know we're dating a Picasso if, and I'm dying to hear.
I'm modern. Do you want to go first?
So I think that in 2025, you would know you're dating a Picasso if you see the girl that he told you, he told you not to worry about buying a pregnancy test at CVS. And you're like, he was gone last weekend or last month. Why is she doing that?
You know you're dating a Picasso if he's rich, but he has a shitty car that was expensive.
Right. But it's like, he's like, no, but you don't understand. It's the best.
Well, okay. So you know you're dating a Picasso if he is rich, but likes vintage things that cost more than brand new things. Like he shops at thrift stores that are more expensive than just shopping at like normal expensive clothing stores. There was like, I feel like rich people don't wear patterns. They like wear solid colors. Rich people don't. They don't. Think about it. Rich people don't wear patterns.
Whoa.
Like celebrities and models don't count. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just everyday rich people that are not famous. They don't wear patterns.
Oh my God, you're so right.
They just wear black or white.
I think you are dating a Picasso if for Christmas he gets you a handmade gift. He's rich and he gets you a handmade gift and he insists that those are more thoughtful. And you're like, you made this on the way over here.
And it's a lazy gift.
And
for
it's lazy gift. You made this card. And your mom might have thought it was cute for Mother's Day. And I think it's cheap.
He genuinely just forgot and did this on the way over.
And he's like, no, but it's really good. Look at it.
You know you're dating a Picasso if his Spotify playlists all have pictures on them and cover things, and all of his playlists have dumb names like Drinking a Beer with God, and his Spotify playlists like kind of are categorized by things he's going through in his life, and he makes a big deal out of them and he posts them on his Instagram story to be like, wow, look what I did. Look at this piece of art. It's a bunch of Billy Joel songs. It's Billy Joel and Radiohead. Look at this amazing playlist I came up with. I put a picture of the street at sunset on the cover, and now this is my creation.
Also, you know you're dating a Picasso if he makes like kind of a snarky mean joke and then you make one back and he's like, no, that's not funny, that's actually not funny.
True.
And you're like, but I thought okay. Then he's like, actually you know that I don't think that's funny. I don't know why you would joke about that.
That's so real. He can do it, but you can't.
That's the
theme. That's the Picasso theme.
That's the theme.
You know you're dating a Picasso if he forgets anniversaries because he's working through a blue period, and he excuses all of his bad behavior with a mental block or a period he's going through. He can never do wrong. If he fucks up really badly, he's just depressed.
I think you know you're dating a Picasso if he tells you that sex is an important part of his artistic practice.
Nasty.
He's like, actually, in order to do my best work, I have to have sex. I found that's how I work the best. And but if you don't want me to work well, you know, that's all right. Then guess you don't want me to succeed. But if you cared about me, we'd have more sex.
You know you're dating a Picasso if he's slouched up against the wall at parties, but expects everyone to come up and talk to him.
Oh, that's a
and
good
he's
one.
So performative about standing around.
He wants you to guess what he's thinking. That's a theme. Like, well, no, you should be able to tell what I'm thinking.
If you feel like you are either his whole world and a goddess and amazing, or irrelevant and confused by his lack of communication, you're dating a Picasso.
Yeah. And if you find yourself trying to guess how he's going to feel without him having to tell you, and if you get it wrong, there will be a problem. You're dating an abuser, but also a Picasso.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. And Jesus, Pablo Escobar was a better husband than Pablo Picasso.
After all that, like, would you have dated him? What would you have done?
This conquistador.
Yeah.
Pablo Picasso would not have dated me because he would get so frustrated with me. Pablo Picasso would dump me. Would I have dated Pablo Picasso? I don't think I would have. I would like to think that I wouldn't have, but it doesn't matter because he would not have dated me. He would get really freaked out by how loud I am because muses are not that loud. And if he tried to paint me for 5 seconds, he would dump me when I would want to like
Right.
listen to music, or if I want to watch John Wick or Mission Impossible instead of a French art film with no sound that's boring as fuck, he'd be like, "Oh, she's not cultured."
I think the only way in which I would have kept hanging out with Picasso is that I would have wanted to keep arguing with him, which is, I think, how some of the women stayed. Like, they were like, I want to keep, I would keep going back to be like, and another thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that I'd go on some dates out of pure curiosity, go to some gallery shows, and then I would try to I would try to become friends, to be in the world, but not his main wife/secretary.
If I did end up dating him, I'd break up with him. I'd like to think. If I did date him, I would break up with him, and then I think he would be like, "Wait, we weren't together."
Right.
Wait, what are you talking about? You were just like,
my girlfriend's actually showing up in 5 minutes.
yeah. And I'd be like, what? Then really we're done. And then he'd be like, I'm sorry, you were just for this picture. I'm sorry, you misunderstood the situation.
Really got confused. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode.
This has been Dating History. I'm Annalisa.
And I'm Katie.
Tune in for our next episode where we talk about another crazy ass man.
Let us know who you think it is, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Woo! Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. It's Katie here
with Annalisa
for the episode's final fact check. So this episode was filmed before the release of Taylor Swift's latest album, The Life of a Showgirl, but any album discourse can be directed to our comments. Picasso is said to have encountered African art at the Ethnographic Museum at the Palais de Trocadero. His denial of the inspiration of his African art period casts a new light on the line he's often quoted with, "Good artists copy, great artists steal."
Hilaria Baldwin, as of this week, was kicked off of Dancing with the Stars. Also adding that Hilaria Baldwin is not Spanish. She is American and just lived in Spain.
Dora Maar is an amazing surrealist photographer. Dora Jar is a really great singer-songwriter who made it onto Katie's Spotify Wrapped.
Okay.
Check her out.
Gotcha.
The painting of Francois Gillot that was created out of Picasso's competitive conversation with Matisse is La Femme Fleur. What makes Annalisa's comment so funny is that there are many paintings by Picasso of women with green hair. By no means are the women discussed in this episode all of the women that Picasso had affairs with, but they are considered the most notable.
Crazy. Also, the friend who chastised Picasso for his treatment of Dora Maar was the poet Paul Eluard, who had introduced the two of them to begin with.
The second wife of Picasso was named Jacqueline Roch because I realized I didn't even say her name during the episode. I was just like, yeah, and then there was another woman. She was around 27 when they met, and he was 72. They had an age gap of around 45 years. She ended up being the woman the most included in his artwork, and they were together for around 2 decades and married for 12 years.
Both Marie-Thérèse, who was 17 when she began a relationship with Picasso, who was 45, and Jacqueline Roch, who was around 45 years younger than Picasso, killed themselves after his death.
When we referred to Françoise as the fifth in the episode, we mean the fifth major muse and the fifth woman that we discussed in the episode. She was obviously not the fifth woman he was with. He was a hoe.
Mm-hmm. And yes, I did my own hair. Yes, I did my own hair.
So thank you for listening to this episode. Check out the work of all of his muses, because not only were Fernande, Olga, Marie-Thérèse, Dora Maar, and Françoise his muses, they were also impressive artists in their own right. And Jacqueline also was a woman in her own right, even though she didn't really seem to want to be, but, you know, alas. Anyway, that's all for the fact check. Thank you for listening or watching this podcast.
And yes, I have worn the same hoops, big hoops, in every single episode to date. Every single episode I've been wearing the same big hoop earrings. Yes, they are the same ones.
If it ain't broke, This podcast was created by
Annalisa Burns
and Katie Massey. You can find us at Dating History on Instagram and Dating History Podcast on TikTok. Our podcast is filmed by Alec DeLand with sound by Sam Lederman. It's produced by Rookie Media and Paige Freeman. Our biggest source for this episode was Life with Picasso by Francois Gillot. Please read it. It's so good. Special thank you to the Los Angeles Public Library and the Octavia Lab. Please let us know who else you'd like to hear about in future episodes. You can send segment ideas and episode ideas to datinghistorypodcast@gmail.com. And have a great week, 2 weeks. See you on October 22nd when we cover another artistic man who loved his wife because of how much she kept forgiving him for cheating on her. Woo! Thank you for listening. Bye.